I want to ask you this, Judge. You know and I know in this 2,300-page bill that includes education now.
Yes.
The control that this government has is endless. They will, if this passes, they will control every aspect of your life, right or wrong.
Certainly with respect to health care and with respect to education, correct. They will tell your doctor what to prescribe. They will tell you how long to stay in the hospital. They will tell you if you qualify for federal dollars for what your doctor tells you need.
They will be able to. There is places in here that if you can be deemed someone who maybe shouldn't have a baby, they can have their people come in. The government is in our homes on this.
Bill Salmon, who was our Washington bureau chief, the other day pulled out a quote, and I don't remember who said it, but it was a Democrat saying, we have to have abortion in this bill because we need fewer babies and thus fewer adults to consume health care that we'll be paying for.
Is frightening. It's absolutely frightening.
It sounds like coming from Beijing.
I can tell you now that there are people in this country, and I beg you, you must know that this is the beginning of this struggle, not the end of this struggle. You are nowhere near out of options. What is the most effective thing that people who are watching right now can do?
To understand their constitutional rights, to confront their senators and congressmen when they violate them, to keep their feet to the fire as to how they vote, and when they vote for this nonsense, to vote them out of office. The solution is political. People ask me every day, can we sue? No, it is too early to sue. In November, the thing they want the most is to be reelected. Deny them that.
Okay, listen, I want to play this audio for you. This is Chuck Schumer. This is in a private progressive meeting. Somebody recorded it, got this tape to me. This is, hey, listen, we've got some options here. Listen carefully to what Chuck Schumer is saying about the rules and the Constitution of the United States. Listen.
There have been some very interesting papers written that say that the constitutional right, for instance, of the Senate to make its own rules supersedes the two-thirds that you can't change the rules, but only when Congress writes new rules at the beginning of each Congress, every 2-year period when we reorganize ourselves. That's something we want to explore.
That's something we want to explore. Back with a panel that I have assembled for actually a tour that I'm doing called The American Revival. It's based on faith, hope, and charity, and the first one is in Orlando and then Phoenix. You can go to glennbeck.com and find out all the information. These guys are some of the best brains that I think I could assemble and bring in front of people and make a compelling case on these issues. We have David Barton, we have Judge Napolitano, and David Buckner. David, I want to come to you because really hope comes from the truth. And the truth is, I mean, we have the Secretary of Treasury from Massachusetts today saying that this is so bad, this health care is so bad, and they're seeing it in Massachusetts now, that the United States of America will be flat bankrupt within 4 years. Well, that's quite a statement.
Glenn, we're bankrupt right now. I mean, we got $14.4 trillion that we owe that we can't repay. You add the Medicare obligations we have that came from a great idea, according to the progressive approach to things, that's another $36 trillion. You add another $6.6 trillion of Social Security obligations. The problem with this, which is the most frightening and which he identifies here, we look at the debt we have right now. We haven't even started to add on future commitments, and this passes through some approach that goes underneath the door, around the door like smoke. We end up having an obligation you can't get out of. You can't obligate because what you're doing is you're pushing others out, creating a monopoly, and that's all you have left. And when you've obligated, that's all you have left to the American people. They look and they say, well, where do I go now? Nothing else is there. And so we have to keep paying for it for as long as the foreseeable future would allow.
But how long is that? Well, I mean, we have Moody's. Now, you tell me, because Moody's, I've been saying this for 3 years, and people at first dismissed, oh, we'll never be downgraded, oh, the United States of America. What? We're talking the laws of economics. They're the laws of nature. You cannot bend them. And now we have Moody's coming out again We have significant trouble on the horizon, and we also have done significant damage to America in the last few months, that they're saying now it's coming. A downgrade is coming. But Moody's is a government agency, is it not?
Well, it's a quasi-government. It's quasi.
Fannie and Freddie.
And by the way, it's just like every organization. It's paid for by those very people who get graded and evaluated. So the credibility issue for me is problematic. But look at it.
So then why are they saying this? Because what they're saying is not good for the people who are paying.
And at some point in time, Moody's has actually got to say, do we have any value at all? If we do, we've got to look at a business, the United States government, for 20 years has not even broken even for 16 of those years. You tell me any company that would lose money for 16 of 20 years, that would run $14 trillion, almost 100% of our GDP, or of our output, $14 trillion, and they're still AAA? The only reason they're AAA is because they can't allow it to be properly graded.
Okay, explain what this means to the average person. As I understand this, this means if you have a credit card at home and you have spent yourself into oblivion, you eventually have to pay for it, and the credit card company says you're missing payments, you're still spending out of control, and they lower your credit rating, which raises your interest rate to the point to where you can't afford it anymore. If our credit is degraded, and they have to raise our interest rate, which is inevitable, yes or no?
Well, it has to be viewed as, are we making our payments and are we trustworthy? When you talk about economics, you talk about the idea of hope, we're talking about trust. To this date, to this point in time, America has been large enough that we have believed, and they have believed, those who have given us money, that we are trustworthy. Now the question is, are we truly able to make payments, and can they be trusted?
But we're trustworthy because we've always had the engine. We've always had the entrepreneurial spirit that something will happen. But now, as a businessman, I'm a small businessman. As a small businessman, I honestly, if this passes, I do not know how to make money. I do not know. They're talking now about coming in and checking my payroll and find out, is person A making as much as person B, and how come person B isn't making as much as person? What are you doing to business?
It is that lack of predictability. See, if we know the market rules, if I go out into the wilderness, I know when it rains I'll get wet, I'll prepare for it. But if I go out into the wilderness and I might get wet and I might not get wet and I might have I don't know how to act as a small business. And then if I know that I'm competing against that government for interest, or for debt, if I want to go use my credit card and they say, I'm sorry, I had to give the money to the government this morning, and you're going to have to pay a higher interest rate if you want to woo it away from them, our interest rates go up. Those of us in the economy, I'm talking about the small business owner, the individuals, are going to feel the wrath of either a downgrade or the government's continued borrowing.
Do you know any serious economist that looks at this and says, no, this is going to work? Do you know anyone?
Those who believe that we're still too big to fail. Here's the irony. The very argument that is being made by our government that no business in the world should ever be too big to fail is the very same argument we're betting on for our survival as Americans. And that is that China, Japan, and other lenders will continue to believe we're too big to allow to fail.
Well, on that happy note, we're going to come back and tell you one piece that has been distorted, and it yet is the beginning piece to put back in the box once it's been corrected. There is charity, there is hope, but first there has to be faith, how it was distorted and how we need to right it, to right ourselves.